No. Muy buenas tardes a todos. ¿Qué tal? Bienvenidos al último programa, al último capítulo de Entre Cafés de esta temporada. Lo vamos a dedicar a Hamilton, que se estrena mundialmente en Disney Plus este viernes. La grabación desde el Richard Rodgers Theatre de Broadway, y hoy, para hablar de este musical, tenemos la colaboración de R.Evolucion Latina con Luis Salgado. Muy buenas tardes, Luis.
Hola. Thank you so much for having us one more time and to share this experience of humanity that we have with all these incredible artists like Christopher Klemons, Joshua Henry, Seth Stewart. It's like people that have filled my heart for like over 10 years now. And just to be able to come together, see each other here and like recap life and recap amazing moment of Hamilton. It's incredible.
Quería aprovechar también para estas personas que está diciendo Luis, presentarlas. Tenemos a Joshua Henry, que ha sido nominado 3 veces al Tony y ha sido Aaron Burr en la producción de Chicago de Hamilton, además del tour nacional de este musical. A Christopher Jackson, que fue nominado al Tony por su papel de George Washington en el musical Hamilton en Broadway. Seth Stewart, que fue parte del ensamble, y además Lafayette y Jefferson en Broadway. Y la gran Stephanie Klemons, que ha sido Swing Dance Captain en la producción de Broadway y además coreógrafa asociada en todo el mundo. Luis, tenemos unos grandes en la sala, ¿no?
Unos grandotes.
Muy grandes.
It's like I said before, it's like such an honor for me to see their faces and to recognize their story. Christopher, Joshua, Seth, Stephanie, thank you for being with us today. But I just want to jump in immediately, just remembering what happened a few days back. We had John Rua, we had Gabriel Sorrentino, we had Juanjo, ¿quién más estaba con nosotros en ese momento?
Perdón, Gabriela Sorrentino, John Rua,
Antoine,
Ricky Tripp.
And Ricky Tripp. Anyway, sorry, I'm thinking about you guys now. And it was such an inspiring conversation. And we honored the process of family and ensemble that was built since In the Heights and that carries through to what you guys created in Hamilton. That it's such a, the question that started posing in my head immediately was like, of course, Lin-Manuel Miranda is like a force of nature. And of course, contemporary work created by great leaders that features the ensemble as the storytellers gives us this hope, but also is the humanity of the individuals. It's that moment of joy of Seth Stewart washing his poster on 42nd Street when the moment happened. It's the moment where Joshua Henry was crossing, you know, making his first cross on Lights Up on Washington Heights. It's that moment where Stephanie Klemons became that first-time swing to all the way that she's become now an associate choreographer and a choreographer of her own in the world, you know, and obviously who's not going to remember that moment of, I don't know about God, but I believe in Chris Jackson. And still to this day, we still believe in Chris Jackson in everything you do, and as a human, as a father, as an artist. And so like the memories of that moment, it takes, like Joshua Henry said to me the other day, it takes this second of seeing each other in the eyes to reconnect to that truth. And so that's my introduction. I love you guys. I'm honored you guys are here. And this is just a family conversation. So Juanjo, where do you want to start?
Yeah. I wanted to start from the very beginning because this week we are going to see something that's already been built and seen by millions of people, but we have people here that were in the very inception in Bazaar like 7 years ago. Is that okay, Joshua?
Yeah.
You were King Charles III, right?
I was doing a split track between King George and Hercules Mulligan.
Hercules Mulligan, yeah.
So, you know, we were doing a workshop at Vassar in upstate New York, and I was Hercules Mulligan, and then to switch to the King, I had a Burger King crown that I was throwing on.
No way.
We didn't have the props.
Remember that?
We ended up having at the Richard Rodgers. But what's interesting about Luis, like you're saying, family, is that was my experience with the show originally, and then it moved on, and it went on to Broadway. I wasn't involved, and you know, like family happens, you know, shows come and go. I didn't know what my future would be with the show, or if any, but I was always, the people on this Zoom have always been so important to me and the creative team. 2016, you know, it happened, my show was closing and the opportunity came to do it in Chicago on the first national tour. And that's where I played Aaron Burr. But it just kind of came, family comes and goes. Family doesn't come and go. Opportunities come and go. But like I was saying to Luis, I hadn't seen you or talked to you in maybe like 8 months. And then as soon as we got on the phone, like I just started tearing up, because as soon as you get back in the room with these people that you built so much with, all those emotions come back, and it's more than a gig, it's more than a show, it's family.
And well, Chris, you were also there, right? In Bazaar, you were in the beginning.
I think that the thing to know that's important is that we all were there when Lynn conceived of the thing that we know Hamilton now. Like, so the first thing that I'll say is I first found out about Hamilton on stage during a performance of In the Heights. We were in the number No Me Diga, and in that number, Benny and Usnavi's character go inside the bodega. And what you need to know about how these things happen on Broadway is, like, when you're not on, it's like the camera's not on you. And so you're composed in your character, but you're talking to one another, like you're having conversations. And Lynn and I would have a 3.5 minute conversation every single show, where we would talk about anything that we would be talking about if we were walking down the street. And so about the last 30 seconds of that particular number, he says to me, he's just gotten back from vacation. He says, I think I got my next thing. It's about the Treasury Secretary. And in true Chris form, I was like, what am I going to do in it? And then I was like, wait a minute, the Treasury Secretary, wait a minute, what? And it was at that moment that you hear, que se yo, and off we pushed the thing out, and we had to go do 96,000. And that was it. Now, of course, my head's spinning, but I'm doing the show, so we're going and doing the show. And Lynn and I didn't have the occasion to talk about it the rest of that day. The next day, Tommy Kail walks through, and I'm leaving out of the stage management office, and he says, what's up, G-Dubs? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because the thing to know is that all of us have this shorthand, right? We have a way of talking to one another. Everything is an abbreviation. Everything is just sort of, you know, a joke on a mention of a joke. Like it's just the way, it's like its own language. And I was like, what, G-Dubs, what do you mean? He's like, George Washington. You're going to play George Washington. I was like, okay, what are you talking about? So then Tommy, exactly. So Tommy proceeds to tell me that Lynn's next idea is about writing this hip hop concept album about Alexander Hamilton's life. Now, I'm a history buff. Like, I read history books just because it's any day that ends in Y. And at the time, I was like, I still have no idea what the hell you're talking about. But it didn't matter. Later that day, I went and got the biography of Washington. I found the thickest one that I could find. Consequently, it was written by Ron Chernow, and I just got to work. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I just kind of dove in. If I could just button this real quick, with just one thing to kind of piggyback on what you were saying earlier. You know, when you get inside the Tommy Kail and Lynn Miranda and Andy Blankenbuehler and Alex Lacamoire thing, right? This sort of, when you come into their orbit, you're really never more than a day away from some sort of involvement in whatever it is that they happen to be doing, right? Like, Josh, you did the thing at Vassar. Then you went off and did like 18 other shows, as evidenced by the poster behind you, right? So it's really never been, you know, I think it's important for people to know, like, the reason why these things are so successful. Yes, Lynn is a virtuosic, you know, creative. But the things don't become real until they get set on all of us, until we all participate in the voicing of these things, right? That's the part where by the time the world has seen it, almost every person in the orbit of the In the Heights, Hamilton, whatever it is that we've been engaged in has touched it. And no less than 5 of these family members, that is just this family that is so, this nucleus that is so powerful and has so many different, comes from every different sort of talent structure and discipline, comes together and influences it one way or the other, right? It's a conversation walking down the street. It's a, you know, the hundreds of rehearsals that Stephanie has led all of us through. And then, you know, the moments where we are engaged in each other's lives and we're engaged in each other's concerts that they do on an off night, or albums that this person puts out, or pieces of choreography that have been, you know, sort of floated out in the world. And then we just get to amplify it. The magic of this thing, of all of these different events, has happened because by choice or by whatever, you know, by God saying, you know what, all these pieces, here you go. Because the unlikelihood of this happening, it's, you can't measure the numbers, right? But like the admiration and the respect and the love that all of these different relationships are based on and built on, just, it amplifies all of our talents. It amplifies, it turns us all into like our own different version of an Avenger. You know what I mean? It just doesn't, and it's never ending. It's just never ending. And that's just sort of that's the glue. That's the magic. You know, Lynn, of course Lynn is talented. Of course Tommy and all those, the Voltron of it all is talented. But like, we've all been the muse for all of this for you know, 16 years. And we get to go off and do other stuff and have kids and, you know, do all that other stuff. But that's the magic of this. When people see anything that we do, they're seeing performers that love each other and trust each other and motivate each other and fight with each other. Flower into
each other as we learn and learn from each other.
Anybody that's ever said anything nice to me has never had to be in Stephanie Klemons' shoes when she had to give me a note. Ever. 7 shows into 50 weeks in a row. Listen, God bless you, woman.
I have well, 3 out of the 4 Juanjo have children, and very, very beautifully. And obviously Stephanie's gonna, I want to learn about Stephanie soon, because she's a hero in so many ways. But one of our parents, it's going to have to go pick up our child in about 10 minutes. So I want to make sure that we give Joshua the mic before we lose him. Joshua, what was it? I mean, what was it for you to just come back to that family that Chris is just saying, to come back in circles, to have gone to American Idiots, to Carousel, to, you know, Porgy and Bess, do the journey that you've done, to be nominated to the Tonys so many times, and then say yes? Why did you say yes to Hamilton? Why did you go out and do the tour of Hamilton and come back to that story and share with that family?
So the show is great. The show's, you know what I mean? Like, the show's good. The show's great. Let me be real. But the opportunity to work with people that happen to be brilliant, but that are my friends, is what I want to be around that. I wanted to be around Alex and Tommy and Lynn, because they were my first experience coming to New York within the Heights with all of you. And, you know, I remember those rooms when we were off Broadway, and we're just reading through, and how close knit we were, and how we looked around and we're like, oh, for me, it's like, that's why I came to New York. I wanted to be around people that value what I value and that are passionate the way that I'm passionate. So coming back to Hamilton was just that. But the people right here, I remember sharing a dressing room with Seth, you know, off Broadway. You know, Luis, you were my best. You were one of my groomsmen. Chris, I've been sending you tracks. We've been collaborating just to like, yo, does this sound good? Stephanie, my first Grow With That live performance, I asked you to be there. So Hamilton, like I said, the shows are amazing. But to your point, Luis, you know, life happens, gigs happen, but I always want to be around my friends. That's really what it is. If I can do a show, get a credit, and make a coin, that's cool too. And sometimes that's the focus, but fortunately with something like Hamilton and In the Heights, it was a mixture of both of those things.
I was thinking and introducing the idea of parenthood, actually not necessarily connecting the dots as quick as my soul perhaps did. Because one of the things that was so powerful for me watching you in San Francisco was the relationship you had to the figure of a family. You now you have a son when you're singing this song, Dear Theodosia, no? And all of a sudden you're like, I was bawling. Like, I think there was a swimming pool happening in that theater because of the interpretation that you had done of that particular song. How has becoming a parent has changed you as an artist?
Well, I remember when you came and saw the show, and that's when Catherine and I were just pregnant. And so I don't know if we told you at that moment, but you probably saw it in a different way than I had performed prior. But I think having Samson, who's now 2, it's made me think about sort of trimming the fat in every way in my life. I just try to move with more intention. There are a lot of things, thank God, that I can do. But now I think about things through a lens of what I'm here to do through mission and purpose. And you know, I want Samson to move through the world very intentionally and not just be like, you know, certainly experiment and try lots of things, but I want him to see that once you find your lane, your purpose, then you zero in on that. And so for me, artistically, that's talking about the intersection of art and personal growth, you know, with Grow With That and that growth life, like a sort of movement that I've started on social media. And that's taking gigs like the last one I did at MCC, which is The Wrong Man, which talks about injustices that are going on disproportionately to black people. And so, you know, that having a child has made me just zero in and not just do things for fun, but with as much intention as I can.
And Stephanie Klemons, what about you? I mean, you're everything. It's like, really, I tell you every time I text you, I'm like, I admire you so much right now. Like, I just see you in that floor at 42nd Street Studios with your little notebook saying, how am I going to do this? And you have become like such a powerhouse in so many ways, a voice for women, you know, your partner, your relationship, right? The representation that you bring to the world. Like, I don't know if I was allowed or not to talk about these things, but like, you're all of those things and more. And you're a great leader, as Chris Jackson said. You're the person that comes in and gives him notes. And that's not an easy task, as he says. So how are you in the journey of all these wonderful blessings that have come from In the Heights to Hamilton?
Intro. You know, it's funny because I'm just thinking to the fact that you did a whole room of people last week. That was all people that I put into In the Heights and all people that I put into Hamilton. And I'm sitting here now with, I remember the first rehearsal with Josh Henry and he was playing Burr. And I was like, I can't believe I'm putting Josh Henry, man 4, walk across the stage at In the Heights into the show. It's just, you know, it's funny because it's very like, it's like the best kind of Groundhog's Day because you just keep working with people who are great. Like the team assembled people who were wonderful at the beginning. And, you know, I say that like now sort of everyone's proven themselves, right? They haven't just done In the Heights or Hamilton. They've done loads of other incredible projects, right? That are not just in the arts. Like look at Seth, who's like literally changing the world, like making sure the sun still shines on us, you know, when our kids are older. Like really incredible human beings. And like they didn't really necessarily know that at the beginning, right? So it kind of makes you think. There's some times where you're just drawn to people, you're drawn to groups of people, you're drawn to projects and you don't know why, but your heart is just calling you towards it. And like, look, they were right. Like they put together these people who are effectively changing the face of the world, not just in the arts, but through the arts and in so many ways. And you know, at the beginning of Heights, I often say like club number when I mean helpless. Like I always confuse the things. You know, so long I called Vin Usnavi. Like I'd give him a note. I'm like, Usnavi, make sure you don't Aaron Burr. I'm like,
oh wow.
But you know, at the very beginning, I had just graduated, right? And so I say this because I'm sure that a lot of folks in Broadway world that are watching this in España are like, they're young kids who are thinking, I want to be a part of the arts, and how do I do it? And I think sometimes you find yourself in rooms where you don't feel like you belong. Like, I very distinctly remember joining the cast of In the Heights and going, what am I doing here? Like, how did I get here? Happy, but like feeling nervous that I might not be able to uphold. And yet everybody around you pulls you up, right? Everyone says like they make you better because you're in the room with people who work harder than anyone you've ever been around, right? Like, I think this group of people that is assembled here today has had the feeling of being the hardest worker in the room and also being the person that feels like they have to work the hardest to remain in the room. And I think that's a really awesome thing for kids to hear and people to hear, because I think sometimes you look at artists and you look at people who have achieved things. And I say this because in this room is not just Chris Jackson, Josh Henry, Seth Stewart, Luis, myself. You know, we are all directly in the circle of Lynn, of Tommy, of Andy, of all these people. And those people would say the same exact thing. And so it's important to say that, one, it takes other people believing in you, of course, to put you in spaces where you can do your best. And it takes something of yourself to remain in those spaces. And it takes a lot of dedication over and over and over again. And so I would just say that, one, every time when you text me and you're like, in the room is going to be Josh Henry, Chris Jackson, and Seth Stewart, I'm like, how cool. Like, I'm as thrilled today to be in that company as I was 10 years. How many years is it, guys? 12 years? How many years ago it is?
Way before this.
Yeah, exactly. And yet here we all are with our, that stuff in our back pocket and all the things we're working on. Like, Luis, you were the reason that I started Katie's Art Project, which is the nonprofit that, a bunch of these folks have gotten involved in. And it's all about creating projects with these incredible artists and kids facing life-threatening and terminal illness. And that was because of you and the way you started Revlat. And I saw what you did and I was like, okay, this is possible, right? Seeing your friends excel and do things that are possible is what causes you to see these new, these new paths for yourself. And I think first and foremost, I'm so grateful for being a part of this group, because it definitely made me a better person to be around these people for the last years.
Thank you. I'm going to Katie's Arts Project in a little bit. But before Joshua goes, and Seth, I need to make sure I get to you. So Seth, are you aware of the amount of people around the world, especially I know Latin America for sure, like Mexico, Peru, Colombia, wherever I go.
Hey.
People know Seth Stewart. People is like, oh, Graffiti Pete, I want to be that guy. And then it transforms again into you become an icon through both of these shows. And I mentioned this too because they're the ones that I see you the closest with. But you've done so much. How is it to you today? It's going into Disney Plus. It's going to continue to multiply the impact of the work and the influence that this show has done. What does it mean to you going from the In the Heights poster to all of this legacy that you are part of and you're leaving behind?
Can you hear me okay? This is my first question.
Yes.
Okay, great. A lot of the times is I really never really paid attention to that impact until somebody like you brings it up. Because I don't really look backwards, and what I've had to learn in my life is to sometimes look back and appreciate, because I'm always looking so far ahead, and sometimes I'm looking too far ahead. So for all the fans that do love me for Graffiti P, I thank you. I just sometimes forget, because I'm just out here trying to create new spaces and find new spaces as an artist. That's my job. That's what I'm called to as a human, and as an artist, that's my job, right? Is to find new perspectives and new spaces that have yet to be explored or re-explored from a different perspective. So what has it been like? I'm still just catching up on what it all means, to be completely honest with you.
Tell them why. Tell them why. What are you doing right now?
Well, right now I'm living as close to nature as possible, but not really, because I'm building a house. I'm building a cabin, and really I'm just building a cabin to have a shelter to live in for the winter. Otherwise, I'd rather sleep outside most of the time and just be as close to nature as possible. And I'm not doing anything that hasn't been done before, but as an artist, I'm taking it from a different perspective. So I feel like as an artist, we need to live different lifestyles in order to be able to bring something different to the table. And that's kind of always been my job. So I don't know if that answers your question, Luis, but
there's a big depth in humbleness as well, I think, right? Like we walk the path to our dreams daily, and we're not necessarily bragging about the path of those dreams or the accomplished dreams. We're just continuing on walking. And that, I know that Joshua has to go. Joshua, you created this movement. You already mentioned the growth life. And before you go get Samsung, is there any message? We're in obviously the current times. Hamilton does so much for, diversity. It's done so many different angles. And people can say at this moment A or B, right? Things can be, but what do you, Joshua Henry, who has been a part of Hamilton, who have your own movement, want to leave before you leave this panel today as a message to the world?
I think the biggest thing that I got from Hamilton was what resounds most with me is the legacy line. Planting, I might butcher the lyric, but planting seeds in a garden you might never see. That to me is what that growth life is all about. I think that's what Seth was referring to. It's not necessarily praising what you're doing in the moment, but understanding that whatever life you are living, that it is of service, and that the things that you plant, whether in art or building a house, you believe in those things and you continue to do those things. Like Seth was saying, even before the confetti falls, right? Everyone on this call, like before we got the call for In the Heights or for Hamilton, we were busting our tails in practice rooms, trying to figure out our place in art and in life. Then we found it, we saw it in the eyes of each other in a couple of rehearsal rooms. But I think that's what the growth life is all about. You get somewhere, you believe in growth and where that can take you. It's not about getting to the Tonys, to a certain show or, a certain location. You believe in the ideal, and the belief in that ideal can take you beyond where you even imagined.
Thank you. I know you have that. So with that, I'll give you your snaps early and make sure you go take care of that beautiful son of yours.
Thank you so much.
Boy for us.
Oh gosh, and it's so good to see all of y'all. I love you so much.
You too, man.
Thank you.
Yo, love you, Josh. Love you, man.
Take it over.
Yes, in the Heights.
Juanjo, ¿qué quieres preguntar?
Sí, I want to know, well, most of all, sorry for the connection, I lost it. When I got back, you were speaking about parenthood, but I got some message about what was in common from In the Heights to Hamilton. And I wonder, in that room where you created this masterpiece, of course there was art, but I want to know your experience seeing this project, this thing that was Hamilton mixtape that became the mega hit. What was the experience in that room where the show was created for all of you?
My experience was a little different in that I wasn't able to participate in either of the workshops, the pre-production workshops, before we mounted it. Mm-hmm. So that time for me was fraught and scary, and I was more than a little stressed. Stephanie's laughing. I literally, for the first time in my career, felt like I was walking into a room where everybody knew the thing except for me. And so I remember when the first few weeks at the public, I had running order and where I was supposed to, the running order of the show highlighted with where I was supposed to go, what side of the stage I was supposed to go on, entrances that I was supposed to make around, like in the surround, that I had no idea about. because even the part of the run through was so confusing to me that I was, you know, never in my career had I ever like gone into an opening preview and not really known where I was supposed to be. And mostly Stephanie heard a lot of my whining and did a very good job of calming me down as much as anyone possibly could. But that was a really tricky, really tricky and disconcerting time. I was just afraid, for quite honestly. That was what that beginning process was for me. There's a process by which you do these workshops where, in the case of Hamilton, and Stephanie can speak to this, that where so much of it is set and established, and you get an idea of the arc of a show and sort of how things are moving. And I couldn't even go see the things because I was in rehearsals and then tech for either one of those workshops. So it was a little crazy, but we got there eventually.
And for you, Stephanie?
Yeah, but that being said, though, I mean, he says that, and you know, as the associate choreographer at the time, I have to say that when we got to the public from the workshop, because Seth, you were not in the workshop, right? You were at the public. You started at the public, or were you in? No, you were in the workshop.
No, just to the public.
Right. So Seth also, same thing. He started at the public. But the thing about it is that, right, like Chris Jackson, Seth Stewart, they're such unique individuals that it doesn't matter if maybe someone had done a version of that before. It's like the second that they get there, it's so much of them. So it's like we were still creating so much at that moment. We were still creating so much at the public. Yes, we had done a workshop, movement workshop and whatnot. But I have to say, personally, the one thing that I always talk about in that moment is that it was so stressful because we knew that we had to do this thing justice. Like we knew that this was a really worthwhile, worthy project and we had a lot of work to do, but also there was such a comfort in the room. There was such like a shorthand. Like I've spoken to Seth 1,000 times before. I've spoken to Chris Jackson 1,000 times before. I don't have to go and introduce who I am as a human being before I talk to them. I can just say, hey, this is the thing. How do we figure this out? I've asked you questions before, you know, like Chris saying like it was stressful for him. It was stressful, but he didn't have to explain to me what happens when he gets stressed. I've been there when he was, you know, at the Tony Awards and in the Heights. Like I've been there for stressful moments in Seth's life. So the other part of that is it was like everyone said, it was like being with family where there was a shorthand, a comfort, you know, and I take that. To me, that's the thing that I pull away from it, that the vocabulary was there and the comfort was there, you know?
There's also something to be said for, like, there are very few people that I will just out of just beginning. If Stephanie tells me to take 5 steps to the left and I'm walking down the sidewalk, I'm just gonna assume that I need to do that. I'll complain about it after I do that, or I'll question it after I do it, but I'll do it.
Which is good.
The level of because for me, being able to trust somebody enough to know that there's a picture that has to be painted, or I'm out of my light, but there's not time to explain it. Like we'll come back around to it. But like, you're lucky when you have people that can put you in the right place and you don't have to necessarily be suspicious of it or wonder if they know what they're talking about, or wonder they know so much about your process that they already know to expect that there's going to be another conversation about it after the show. Right? Like, and that's the part of the experience that I relish, because then you get to learn on several different levels about what you're doing.
At the same time, and Stephanie, Seth, Chris, you know, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think at the same time, both this process, and I wasn't part of the Hamilton process, but definitely seeing it from In the Heights and seeing Andy work and Tommy work in different scenarios, it is a process and a quality of development that who you are matters also. What you bring to the table and how you feel about things and the way that you will articulate a reality affects the show. It is taken into consideration. Tell me if I'm wrong.
like Seth, I want Seth to talk about the fact that like the gun tossing at the top of Stay Alive, if it wasn't Seth Stewart, that wouldn't have happened. Like Seth had that in his pocket, you know, like so much of it that was created. I mean, Seth, so much of what was created is Seth. Seth's track is him. Like he brought that to the table, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the difference between the two, you can't really compare the two. The biggest thing that I learned from this whole situation is like, just because you've worked with people before, everybody's in a different place. Everybody's in a different level. Everybody has had different life experiences from the time you went from your last show to this show. So I think the thing that I learned is I had the same expectations of family and closeness of heights, and I brought that to Hamilton, and that was my first mistake. Because Hamilton was a different beast from the beginning. We were trying to, it wasn't necessarily about family. The story was about something different. And so what I learned from this was I need to approach every show, and this is my advice to everybody out there, is I need to approach every show with a new eyes and a new lens, and be more open and not expect things to be like they once were, because that's just never going to be the case, because you're not in the same place that you were. The creators are not in the same place that they were. And so the process was a lot different in the fact that it felt like this was going to be a moving entity in a different way. It wasn't about, oh, love and, you know, let's share our story for the people. It was like, no, we're about to make some big moves, you know. We're gonna make some big moves and change the world. And sometimes it gets really dirty doing that. But I'm willing to get dirty to do that. And so I learned from this process. I didn't enjoy the process the whole way through. A lot of times I did, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because we're supposed to learn. We're supposed to evolve from these projects. And so it was beautiful in so many regards to be like, oh, this is what I need to know now.
And based on that, it's very educational for me to hear that point of view as well. But based on that, then there's a figure like Chris Jackson. And I know, Chris, you have to also run to another commitment today. But, you know, one thing that you did with us in the Heights was the circle. Like that was the nucleus of family, and it was religious, and we had it before every single performance. Did that translate it to Hamilton, or how did in Hamilton, was there something that was similar to it in the keeping the core value of the company before going to the stage every day?
First of all, it's not just a simple sort of prayer circle. It is really like, that is 5+ minutes of your pre-show ritual. It is a decision that you have to make to say, okay, I want to connect with my brothers and sisters here, because this thing that we're about to do is so difficult, and maintaining that focus in each other and that implicit trust, so that when that stool toss kind of goes awry, I'm already looking out for all of you. It doesn't mean that things don't happen, but it means that it's a reaffirmation, if you will, of our commitment to each other, right? And to this idea in this moment that we have to try to leave the process better than the way that we came in, right? And that's always the sort of the last thing that I say anytime that I lead any kind of group. Like, let us grow through this process. If we come in mad about something, let us grow out of that anger into motivation. Let us be able to put the things down that we don't need, and like use this as an opportunity to find some equilibrium and to grow ourselves, right? That is, you know, I was just asked the other day, and I'll end with this. Like, I was just asked the other day, if there's one mental picture in my mind of my experience in Hamilton, what would it be? And of course, all these press photos are coming out. And one of the things is that one of the pictures is of me, it's during Right Hand Man. And I'm being surrounded by these quote unquote, you know, the other actors on stage as soldiers. And the thing that after seeing the film, I was reminded of this. The way that story was told is that, yeah, I'm this character and I'm saying these lines and I'm expressing this thing, but that moment is amplified by the other 8 actors that are around me. And the lasting picture that I have in my mind is of John Rua and Seth Stewart and Ari DeBose and Sydney Harcourt and Sasha Hutchings. All of these amazing artists in their own right are in that moment with me, and I never was able to truly see it. I never, ever could see it from my perspective. We're all looking out in the same way. But I'm realizing that in this moment that I'm telling this story, the only way it actually works and reaches the entire audience is because they're committed to it. That look on Seth Stewart's face is not a look I've ever seen in our knowing each other and being brothers for 13 years, right? And I'm as close to Seth Stewart as I am to any other person on this planet. And I saw that look in his eye, and that's not a look that he walks around with. That's a look that he was giving the attention that he shared in that moment, right? Like no different than you would have seen it if we were in a battlefield, because that's where we are in that moment. We're on a battlefield, and more metaphorically speaking, this whole life, artistic life, has been a battlefield, especially in the moment that we're in right now. And it reminds me of the fact that being pure of heart and being able to have access to that purity, into that focus, into that strength and power. It's not about looks, right? Like I see that face, and I'm like, well, if I gotta get into some kind of a fight with somebody, that's my dog. Where that man will die for me, and I'll die for him, you know. And it's the same way that Stephanie looks at us when we're doing the show. It's the same kind of focus. It's the same kind of intelligence. It's the same kind of instinct and intuition that she has to have to examine all of this stuff. The number of hats that have to be worn and the number of plates that are spinning constantly would blow anybody's mind. But the gas to that machine is the love and trust that we have. And it's honestly, it's the only thing that makes it worth doing when you're doing 8 shows a week and you still have a family at home and life is still unpredictable and you have ups and downs. But it's the only reason why doing 8 shows a week is worth it. It's the only real value of that moment and of that experience, truly.
Can I piggyback off that real quick?
Yeah.
Just because my battery's always dying. Yeah, I love Prayer Circle, Luis, because it's a time when we get to bring everybody together, you know, and people that are just coming into the show, you're getting in the middle of that circle, and we're all going to put our hands on you to let you know we got your back. Whether it's a swing coming on, it's like, we're not going to let you fall off stage. We're not going to let you hurt your neck or twist your ankle. We have got your back. Like, even if we did 19 shows in a row, we let people know. And it's also the time where it's like, you can let your guard down and get a hug from somebody, and you didn't even know you needed a hug. Like, Prayer Circle did that for people. And so it was a moment where you got to release whatever it is that you had that day at the door to go create something amazing for other people that needed inspired. The little Stephanie Klemons, the little Chris Jacksons, the little Luis Salgados. It's like, you have to remember that when you're in show business, especially live shows, that it is beyond you. It is beyond your emotions for that show. We are there to do it because we love it, but we can never forget those people. And, you know, a lot of people are starting to see what the ensemble did, and Chris can never see that, and a lot of people can never see what we did. But I knew as an ensemble member, I got to give this guy energy. I got to give Renee energy, even though she can't see it. And if she turns and looks at me and she's tired that day, or somebody else is sick that day, I'm going to give them the energy that they need to keep going, because it is about the whole. It's about the unit, you know. And so that's what Prayer Circle also did from start through the show until we were done. It was like, no, I'm here for everybody else.
Yeah, it's like doing the show as an act of worship in and of itself.
Amen.
That's you know, worshiping each other and worshiping each other's heart, and you know, the same God gave that person a full measure of talent, a full measure of everything. And how do we edify that? How do we edify each other? Even when you're mad at each other, how do you edify it? Right? It's impossible to be mad at somebody and go on stage with them and not support them, especially when they're
he's on somebody else.
You know what I'm saying? Like, Luis, you and I used to argue, and I still loved watching you dance. I couldn't help but love you when you danced. Even if I couldn't, like, if we wasn't talking off stage. You understand what I'm saying? Because family, this is what we do. But there's so much adoration. Like, even when you can't express it, your talent will do it anyway. Right? That's it. I got to sign off here, but whoever is out there who needs a good word, like, you have a full measure, and whatever you're lacking, the Spirit there is there to, you know, to come through other people, to work through other people, to lift you up and get you to your best self, and to be able to maintain that. That's what doing shows with these people is about.
And you want to talk about legacy, that's still happening. I know because I go and check on the companies. That circle that Chris left there behind him hasn't been there in however long. It's still happening, which that's like what the show is about.
That's what it is.
I know you have to run, but thank you for your time and thank you for your message and thank you for your example. Because
I love y'all.
It's holding those hands what have also contributed to, I guess, all of us becoming better artists and bringing that circle wherever we go. So thank you. And we'll be watching you soon on TV.
I love y'all. Love y'all.
Thank you, Chris.
Stephanie, kiss that baby for me. Love y'all.
I will. Love you, Chris Jackson.
Bye. Love you back. Bye. Seth the Holiday.
Stephanie and Seth, and I'll pass it back to Juanjo, but we're now joining the world where we can go deeper into choreography, because all of this work that we've been talking, the family-like ambient, like Hamilton is such a hard choreographic show, and yet it's not in your nose. It's not a show that people are going out and like, I was dancing that chorus because, you know, but yet it's very, very, very intriguing, very intricate, very developed, very poetic, very metaphoric piece of work. And you guys were there 8 shows a week. Tell us a little bit about, before we even go further, Stephanie, on the creation side, performing the show, being part of something that carries so much depth and purpose and intention in every single move. Please let us know about that.
It was terrible. I'm going to be honest. That was the longest show I've ever done. And I'm going to be straight with people. I mean, I loved it. Andy's vision, I'm sorry, there's nobody better unmatched. Like I'm going to be truthfully honest. I feel like there should be more choreographers of color doing choreography for shows that have color. However, nobody else could have done this job the way Andy did it, period. Just nobody could have done it. And even though he had our influence, his vision, he has a vision of a director, not just a choreographer. And Stephanie there to back him and add in her visions as well was incredible. I didn't realize how amazing it was until I saw the film. Like I really did not realize how amazing it was, but it hurt every night. And but again, as an artist and being a dancer, you have to alchemize the pain or the things that you're going through and put it into the story. Like the pain was real in the revolution, so I had to put it in the show every night. You know, but we were also on stage literally nonstop. And our runtime of the show, we actually ended up doing 9 shows a week. We weren't a 2-hour and 30-minute show. So by the time our week ended, it's as though we did 9 shows and my body felt it. But the choreography was like, for Helpless Satisfied, like, get out of here. It was incredible and it was fun to do. We were just trying not to die also on turntables that move 2 opposite ways, only to get on a stage that wasn't moving. I felt like I was on a roller coaster every single night, and I thought I was going to come out with vertigo, but that didn't happen. But this choreography told a story, and I knew it doing the show in a way that was going to be unmatched. But then when I saw it from a film perspective, I was like, I wish I could have seen the film while still doing the show.
Wow. Andy is so, like, his vision is that of a film too. Like he
probably lost the reception.
No. But we heard your full thought there, and like I was just saying how Andy's vision, it's pretty much that of the cameras and the lenses that create a film. He goes into zoom in, he goes into zoom out, he points at the focus of what you wanted to see. Stephanie, tell me more about that since you've been so close to the process.
You know, people have asked me through the years, like, how does Andy do it? How does he choreograph a show? And I can tell you the logistical things. Like I can say, you know, he makes a vision board and he puts pictures of things that he wants to see around, and he does research and he takes class and he watches videos and he puts the best people in the room to make the thing, right? So I can tell you that's what he does. But the part that I can't tell you is the thing that Seth is talking about, which is this really special, iconic thing that Andy does where he'll make some moment. I'm like, how the, like, what?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
And I was there. I talked the whole thing through. Like like I said, I knew every step. And he said, where should she go? And how do we get this person here? Blah, blah, blah. And then I see the final moment and I'm like, it's, you know, it's as if, and he's such a vessel, right? Like he's so humble. He's so like, doesn't like to be around people. He doesn't like really, I mean, he wants to be recognized. Of course, I think like it feels good as a human being to know that people see you. But the working with him is so wonderful because he does ask the people in the room to, he's not too proud to say, your idea for this moment is better than mine, or the way that you move your body right here is more than I can give. I know the vision. I know what I need to see. And I know that your body is going to give that to me. And so in a way, he's like one of the most generous choreographers out there because he's really pulling on all the tools. And the way that he does that is by putting the best ingredients in the room. You know, and so it's been such an honor to work with him. I've learned so much from him, and yet like I can't even tell you what the secret sauce is because it's just like the music comes on, he does a thing, and you're like, it's Andy.
It's Andy. Juanjo.
I have a question for them because, of course, we are all going to gather in our living rooms watching Hamilton next Friday. And from your personal perspective, I would ask you, both of you, what would you like us to keep in mind while watching it? Like we all know from these 2 days that there are beautiful human beings behind the scenes, but from your perspective, what would be your advice? Like keeping this in mind while watching it because you are going to watch it from a different perspective.
I'm gonna jump in quick, Seth, because I was actually thinking about this heading into this call. You know, there's a line in the story, the revolution is messy, but now is the time to stand. And there's a lot of things happening in the world right now. And I think there are a lot of people, and maybe we have felt at moments like we just want to like clean it off, right? Like the room is messy and we want to just, you know, people say things like, when are we going back to normal? When is this going to be over? When? But actually, like the revolution is about walking through the fire. It's about walking through the mess. It's not about putting things back where they were, because things I'm sorry, things are not going back where they were. And that's wonderful. That's great. We need that. We need the world to know the experience of people who do not look like us. We need the world to know not just like I need to understand things that I've been in spaces where people have said things before and it hasn't struck me. It didn't strike me that was not an inclusive thing to say. Like I have to have my eyes open. And I know that when we were building Hamilton, that was there for us, right? That was there for every single person that's in that show that looks all different ways, put their experience of life into that show. And so it is there. And a lot of people in the world weren't able to see it before. And I hope now the world will watch it with new eyes. The world will watch it and say, what does it look like? What does it mean when Daveed Diggs, a Black man walking around, is telling the story of this human being, of this person? He is embodying Jefferson for a reason. He is doing it with a purpose. It means something that Seth Stewart, right, is walking the ground in the fight with, you know, he's Charles Lee's, you know, right hand, like that. Seth Stewart, a Black man walking is telling this story. Like we need to understand as people that the story that Hamilton started to build, it was being built long before anybody could see what the message actually was. And I hope that people in their living rooms are understanding that, like Seth said, building that show 8 times a week, that was not pretty. We didn't come into work and say like, oh, I can't wait to be here. It was hard work. It was hard and it hurt. It hurt everyone's body. It was hard. And because we did that, we whittled down this coal into this beautiful diamond. And that's what the world is doing right now. And I hope that it reminds people that you can't shy away from the hard work.
Yo, I'm going to piggyback right off of my sister, because that's what exactly what I was going to say. And everybody sees the diamond, but they don't see the grit that it takes to and the pressure that it is to make the diamond. So everybody's like, I love Hamilton. And I'm like, yeah, but I remember the pressure. But for the new America that is out there, that is equal gender rights, equal racial rights, that everybody that this new America that wants equality, that is going to be the viewership. The one thing I want them to think of is you're seeing the new America on stage. And I will give up all, and I will set aside all the pressure and the pain and the tears and the happiness to make sure that I deliver a diamond to that new America, to the transgender America, to the mixed race couples. You know what I mean? I'm just happy we created a diamond and that I had a chance to be a part of it. So when I see people, what I want them to take away is like, this is your diamond. Now let's shine together, because the new America is here on stage and on the audience across the world that's going to see it.
Wonderful. I'm looking at some of the comments. I haven't been able to catch up to the comments because you guys are just so like enthralling. I don't know if that's a word, but I said it. It's like, I'm like this. So people actually, Matt Steph, oh my God, making the diamond. Remember those, Seth, when I just made words up? You remember those? So making the diamond, thank you for reminding us that you have to put the hard work in to make the diamond. Angelica is also commenting on Stephanie Klemons that your words are so inspired. When Rua is around, also he's like, should I say word or should I say palabra? And of course it's the whole fan club for Seth. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that, you know, people are connecting with us as you guys are saying everything that you're sharing on giving us perspective and focusing in the inside experience of Hamilton. Juanjo.
Sí, perdón.
Juanjo, you're muted. There you
now
go. Yes.
I'm great. Yeah. I wanted to bring another topic, and I don't know if we have time for that, but Luis always brings it, and I think it's very interesting. With all the fame and all the power that you as an artist have with Hamilton, now what would be your next step? Where would you like to focus for your next project? Both Stephanie and Seth. I'm very interested.
Steph, do you mind if I go first? Because I have like 2% on my phone.
Oh God.
This is my new normal. Well, so here's the other thing. Everybody wants to know what's next. I say what's next is be present wherever you are right now. That's your next. And because as an artist, I've looked so far into the future of what's next, and I didn't always necessarily enjoy the place that I was at present moment. So I think the whole world needs to pay attention to what's right here, what's right in front of me, and what can I create with the people around me, right? If you want to be a creator, you're going to have to speak the truth for wherever it is that you see that you want to change. So the what's next for me personally is getting people closer to the earth, getting people closer to their hearts, because we are in an evolution of humanity. And I think it's really important to use all the fame that I have, that it's, to me, is just an illusion, but I'm going to use that to say, hey, everybody, let's start really loving each other, because this new paradigm is here. And so I just pray that everybody stays in the present moment. I pray that you continue to follow and lead with your hearts. You're seeing us on stage, but we're regular people that live regular lives. And so that's what I would say. And my phone is literally about to die, but I love y'all. I didn't know I had so many fans. So Luis, I love you. Stephanie, my sis, I love you. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, Broadway World Spain and everybody. I just love y'all. So just, you can do anything that you want to do. You always have to trust yourself first.
Thank you, Seth.
I love y'all.
Love you too. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank you, Seth.
And look, we're here with Stephanie Klemons. Steffi, first answer Juanjo's question, and then I want you to take us into the way that you're here and now as well, outside of the stage. Is this giving back to Katie's Arts Project as well?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that Seth and I were the two people left, because Seth and I talk whenever we speak. We don't talk about the business at all. We always talk about what we're creating in our lives beyond the business. And, you know, like he said, he's off in a forest living somewhere, just building huts and tents. And I have been working really hard throughout the quarantine on Katie's Art Project programming. And Katie's Art Project is something that is so close to my heart. And, you know, I always prayed as a little girl that I would be just famous enough that I would have a platform to speak on things that I felt were really important. It was never really about, I don't really like being center of attention. And so it was never really, that never appealed to me. And I'm so grateful because once Hamilton came along, like all of us, you know, the ensemble members of all of us, you know, our social media, which is now like currency, right? Your social media following is essentially your currency. It's like the impact that you can have, what you can buy, what you can purchase, right? Not tangible things, but emotionally and connection wise. And we were given that gift with Hamilton. Like anyone that was in Hamilton, you suddenly have all these viewers, right? And in Instagram, if you have more than 10,000 viewers, you can link, right? So all of a sudden you have swipe up feature and you can literally effect change in a way that you would have not been able to do before. I can post a link to sign a petition for something. I can post a donation thing and send people there. And that in and of itself is power. That's today, right now, that's power. So if you ask what I'm doing right now, I'm not really worried about the business. I'm not worried about what's next. And I'm grateful that I have shelter and food so I can focus on that. I don't have to worry about what money I'm gonna make to feed my son. And so I'm just really right now focusing on one, listening for what's necessary, where the world needs me, and two, focusing on how I can be of service and really allowing myself, you know, yes, I'm taking dance classes and these other things and doing things, but I'm not really focused on like a project, so to speak. And that's a really nice place to be. And it's really different than anywhere I've ever been before.
Nice. And Katie's Art Project, how long have you had it now running, and what kind of changes have you been able to create with it?
Yeah, you and I actually had a conversation on the top floor of the Richard Rogers in 2010, I think. And from there, it's taken an evolution, but now we are our own 501c3. I take artists from all over the world. So if there's any artists or performers listening, I need you. Visit Katie's Art Project on Instagram and DM us. What we're doing right now is we've shifted all of our programming since COVID is such a big thing and these kids are already immunocompromised. I'm bringing artists to them by creating WebEx Lives. We did something with the Ronald McDonald's House here in the States, and also bringing Instagram IGTV series, all types of tutorials, how to sing, how to make how to audition, how to do the dance from Cher. Like it's all different things. We've shifted all of our programming to online, and it made me really think, right? You want to talk about things that were blind spots for you. I've been working with this population for 10 years and the kids are in hospitals and they're quarantined all the time. They're often, when they're undergoing chemo, in a quarantine situation where they're in the hospital, they're not allowed to see anyone because everything has to be perfectly sanitary and they're stuck there. And it never occurred to me to create programming that they could watch in their hospital room or that they could do in their hospital room. Every Sunday we release like a new craft project that they can make with items from the hospital. And we send footage right to them, right to their phones. And we're not going to stop doing that now. Now that's, I think a lot of the world and a lot of different places have found that this online content is a really, it's a whole world that we didn't see, right? Like I would have never had a conversation with Juanjo before. Like that wouldn't have happened. And it's the quarantine that got us all there. We had to have the resourcefulness to create this. And so Katie's Art Project is definitely going to continue that programming. So actually anybody can head over to Katie's Art Project and see Karen Olivo teach you how to, warm up for her high note, and can see Josh had, like we're rolling out all this new content. We just had Anthony Ramos played Lawrence. You're going to see him this Friday. We just had him on a live chat this past Friday. So you can hear him talk all about making the In the Heights film. And that's available not just to our kids, but to anybody. And so Katie's Art Project has grown so much and really exponentially in this time.
Amazing. Thank you.
We have to share the link to Katie's Art Project for sure.
Yes, thank you.
And the people are already saying, signing on, hashtagging Katie's Art Project. And this is Hope. Hope is around here. Hi, Hope.
Hi, Hope.
Jaime Lozano came by. You're all an inspiration for so many people, including me. Thanks for being an example through your actions. And John Rua continues to be with us. Learning perfect is not necessarily what you imagine, but imagining was the gift that got us somewhere. Imagining was the gift that got us somewhere. It's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on board with the interview. Of course, I'm saying it to you now directly, but also to Joshua Henry and Christopher Jackson and Seth Stewart. Juanjo, what do you have to say?
Yes, thank you guys. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, all the people on R.Evolucion Latina who has helped not only on these 2 last chapters of Entre Cafés, but for so many programs, and also Christopher and Joshua and Seth for all your inspirational voices. And let's make el camino juntos, like we always say.
We have also here a request that I think, Juanjo, you and I are going to have to do a follow-up later on. I know today is our last Entre Cafés, but Captain Marco here is saying, give us an advice on new Spanish artists, directors, actors, dancers, you know, so people are hungry for knowledge as well. And I think for you, you know, Stephanie, and for Seth and Chris and Joshua, Juanjo, myself, in R.Evolucion Latina, we have a lot of work to do. This is the time for us to share light, to share our voices, to share the connections and the possibilities that we can all contribute to what can be different and new, or just simply a validation and respect in our world. So we have our hands full, and I just hope Stephanie and all of us artists to be able to continue to do work that opens a path, that makes change, that gives light, that, you know, changes the course of the conversation the way that I think Hamilton has done, hands down. And I think that I'm looking forward to seeing this show on TV soon, and to celebrate all of my friends with the incredible contribution you have done through this piece.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
all right,
you,
Stephanie.
Thank you, Juan. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.